Magik, issue number 1 from Marvel Comics. So we got this cover by J. Scott Campbell. I like it. I've seen some people post on social media they didn't care too much for it. I like J. Scott Campbell's works. There are some other variants that I think probably should have been the primary one. And I'll show those at the end of this video when I'm doing my final thoughts. Let's just jump right into this. So we start off with a girl being kidnapped by what looks like some kind of demon. Basically gets dragged into a portal. And it turns out that this girl is a mutant. There's mutants that are disappearing. Nobody knows why or how. And that's when we get our main character. I'm just going to refer to her as Magik. Just kind of talking about her life, about how she was kidnapped by this demon and she thought her life was over. And then eventually she was able to come across the new mutants and the X-Men, and she loves this life, but she's always worried it's going to be taken away from her. And then that's when we have the Dark Child, who basically says, like, you know, you freed yourself from your prison. You were selfish. Limbo is merely our genesis. And Dark Child wants to try to retake control over Magik. Throughout this issue, we're going to see that Dark Child wants Magik to use the Dark Child powers. So Magik wakes up from her nightmare. She's wearing a shirt that says Magneto was right. I guess she lives in this place where only mutants live. Like, I'm not too familiar with the Marvel world, like what's going on. I know that apparently they created like their own country where like only mutants live, because I guess the mutant hate grew and grew to like a boiling point. So whatever. And she decides to get dressed in her outfit. And turns out that everyone else is trying to throw a surprise party for her. I think the one at the table is supposed to be Kitty Pryde, maybe? I have no idea. Obviously, I know Beast, I know Juggernaut, I know Cyclops. I have no idea who this black woman is. I have no idea who this guy, quote unquote, with the pink hair and shirt is. These are new characters to me. So yeah, they want her to have like a party. They want her to celebrate her birthday. But Magik's like, nah, I don't want to do that because there's mutants disappearing and we got to figure out what's going on. And she uses that as an excuse to dip out of her party. She basically leaves, teleports herself away. So then we cut to this funeral that's being given to, I believe it's supposed to be the girl in the beginning that we see getting kidnapped. So she was a mutant. So this is a funeral for mutants. And there's a couple of other mutants there to pay respects. And then there's also a bunch of mutant haters outside who are pissed off that there's a funeral being held here for a mutant because they hate mutants. And that's when Magik teleports here for some reason. Why, of all the places, would it be here? I have no idea. I mean, on the news, it did say that mutants were disappearing from this town. So it makes sense for her to appear at this town. But why specifically right here, of all places? A town could be pretty big. She could have teleported anywhere else in the town. Why specifically at this moment? It's just a coincidence. And of course, we have a bunch of mutant bigots trying to stop her. And then that's when all these demons show up just in time. Magik starts using her power. She summons her soul sword and starts fighting the demons. I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool. Like, this is why I want to read Magik. I want to read Magik to see her fighting demons. For anyone who's not familiar with my stuff, my channel, I love comics that are focused on the occult. So I'm less of like the Superman, Batman, tights-wearing heroes. Not that I have anything against them, but those are like less of the stuff that I like to read. And I like reading more of like the Midnight Suns, John Constantine, Blade, Ghost Rider. I like stuff that deals more with like the occult and the supernatural. That's always been my jam when it comes to comics and manga and just any storytelling in general. I love like heroes that fight demons. So I was like, all right, this is sweet. Get to see Magik fighting against some demons. She even uses her stepping discs to teleport the bigots away, and she teleports them to Limbo, apparently. She says, however, they require a midpoint. I hope they enjoy a small glimpse of Limbo. So maybe she's teleporting them away, but to teleport them away, they have to go through Limbo first before they can come out the other end. I don't know. I'll be honest, I'm not too familiar with Magik. I mostly know her from the Marvel Rivals video game. And I do know of her like a little bit from other series. But those series, she was kind of just another character. She wasn't like a focal point. So I've never really delved too much into this character in general. So this is all new stuff for me. But these demons start going after another mutant. That's when this other bigot is like, see, they're going after mutants. And one of the mutants is trying to save the bigot. And the bigot throws the mutant in front of the demon. The demon grabs the mutant and creates a... actually, I was going to say that the demon is creating a teleportation for them to leave, but it looks like Magik might actually be doing that because her hand is glowing when this teleport thing appears, and she dives at the demon. So her, the demon, and the mutant that it was kidnapping go through the teleport. The only thing is that they come out the other end where we see our big baddie. So if Magik created the teleport, why would it teleport her to where the villain is? That doesn't make any sense to me. That seems too much of a coincidence. So I'm going to assume that maybe it was the enemy that created this teleportation. Either way, they get teleported into this graveyard where we meet our big baddie. And our big baddie is a crow cowboy. I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Not too big of a fan of his outfit, though. Like, I like the crow feather jacket, but the fact that he's like shirtless, I don't know, it looks kind of weird. Like, he's shirtless, he looks like he's almost pantless. Like, it looks like he just has like maybe some feathers, kind of like a feather shorts. It just looks really weird. It would have been a lot cooler if he was like decked out in like a cowboy outfit, and then he had like a jacket made of crow feathers. Like that would have been a lot cooler. But yeah, he's a crow cowboy, and he basically is the one that's been kidnapping mutants, and he is trying to break this seal to release this entity called Liminal. Kind of a weird name for an ancient entity. I don't know. It doesn't really bring fear into my heart or anything like that. I think maybe another name would have worked better. But he's trying to unleash this ancient entity called Liminal. And he's doing that by sacrificing mutants. Apparently sacrificing mutants is able to break the seal that's containing Liminal. And he just needs one more sacrifice to go. And so he was going to kill the mutant that the demon was kidnapping, but now that Magik is here, he's like, oh, maybe I can fight you instead. Maybe you'll actually give me a challenge. It would be a fitting end, because all the other mutants I've kidnapped were way too easy. So he shoots at her, and she is just able to instantly like re-heal the wound, and we get a fight scene. And I like his powers. His powers are kind of cool. Basically, he has a revolver, he has a 6-shooter, and he shoots. And depending on what he says, will transform the bullet that he shoots. So for example, he shoots a bullet, just a regular bullet, but then he says burst. And so the bullet actually bursts into different shrapnel parts, and then they become like homing missiles almost, and they hit Magik from all sides. So I was like, all right, that's kind of awesome. Later on, we have like a moment where he shoots and he says split, and then the bullet splits in half. And so now we have like 2 pieces of a bullet, getting fired. Whatever he says is what the bullet does. And that's a pretty cool power, in my opinion. It fits for a cowboy. So then this teleportation opens up, and this grandma and this other guy show up. His name is Isaac. And it is kind of weird how so many characters have teleportation powers in this issue. We had Magik, who has teleportation. We had the demons, who can teleport themselves. We had the crow cowboy, who later on will teleport himself. And now we have this grandma and this kid named Isaac who are teleporting. So a lot of people have teleporting powers. But the grandma and the kid, obviously their family, grandma is the kid's grandma, and they come from a long line of people who their sole job is to contain Liminal and to keep the seal intact, to keep Liminal from being able to break free. And now they have to try to find a way to contain the seal, since this crow cowboy is sacrificing mutants to break it. The seal is weakening, and they have to find a way to seal it now. So grandma starts trying to use her magic to strain the seal to keep Liminal contained. And that's when Crow Cowboy decides to go after the mutant girl that he had kidnapped earlier. So he ignores Magik and kills her instead. Kills the mutant girl. Of course, this pisses off Magik because Magik just witnessed someone being murdered in front of her that she wasn't able to prevent. So Dark Child is like appearing behind her, and she's like, you're holding us back. Was it worth it for your silly morals? You just got someone killed. Who else are you going to let die? Use my powers. And so we see her kind of start embracing that demonic side of her. And that's when we see the Crow Cowboy, and he shoots another bullet, and he says explode. And then the bullet explodes into like a puff of smoke. Again, just really cool idea. Here's the part I mentioned earlier where he shoots at her and he says split, and the bullet splits in half and it starts hitting her. And so he's just constantly shooting, constantly saying stuff like explode, split, burst. And Magik is just more and more starting to succumb to the Dark Child powers. But eventually the grandma yells at her like, stop swinging your sword like a brute and use your head. And Magik is able to kind of talk herself down and starts relying on her own powers rather than on Dark Child's powers. Usually I won't spoil everything, so I'll be skipping some pages, but I am going to spoil the ending just because I really need, well, I don't really need to, but I really feel like I need to talk about it. So eventually near the end, the Crow Cowboy shoots the grandma and kills her, and then he teleports away. And Magik teleports the grandma and the grandchild back to Earth. And then we have this weird moment where the grandchild, he's crying over his dead grandma, saying, don't leave me. You promised to explain everything. And then immediately he just stands up and he's like, I let Ren die alone. I let my only family die. These notes are all I have left of my grandmother. Her last wish for me to decipher. That thing, whatever it is, will never hurt anyone again. I won't let it. I don't trust you. And until this thing is destroyed, I'm going to keep you and this book that my grandma's journal, basically, my family's journal, in my sights. And that's kind of like how it ends. The reason why I bring this up is because of the fact that I feel like there's too much going on in this issue, which is kind of funny because I've complained about other comics in the past that drag on forever and take too long to get to the point. And I feel like this issue is the opposite of that, where it's the complete extreme. Rather than being too slow, it's too fast. So this grandson, his name is Kellen Isaacs. So I'm just going to refer to him as Isaac. So Isaac, we don't have too much about him. Like, he shows up, he's at this funeral. Apparently the person who died was a friend of his, and then or maybe he was just at the funeral and he was there for Ren and maybe the person who died. Ren is the girl who ended up getting kidnapped and then killed by the Crow Cowboy. And Isaac is like, she died, my grandma died. Oh no, what am I going to do? And then immediately the next panel is, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to destroy the Liminal, and I don't trust you, Magik, but we're going to work together to defeat Liminal and destroy it for good. It just seems like a complete 180. We go from one panel where he's like, what am I going to do, Grandma? You didn't teach me anything, to immediately, okay, here's what we're going to do. And then, I don't trust you, Magik, to immediately, okay, Magik, let's work together. Like, in the space of a couple panels, we have that. I feel like it's way too much and we could have slowed it down a bit. I also feel like the introduction of the grandma and Isaac is way too fast. Like, we see them throughout this issue, but we don't see too much of them. Like, it would have been nice if we saw more of this character. If this character is going to play a huge part, it would have been nice to see more of them. Maybe actually introduce them in issue number 2. And then issue number 1 can focus more on Magik and her issues. Like, her issues are basically that she feels like she just brings danger to herself and everyone around her. So she's kind of putting a distance between herself and the X-Men. That's kind of what her leaving the birthday party was her not wanting to get too close to other people. So I would have liked if we focused on that more, where like we had more focus on her nightmare. We had more focus on her and her issues. Her distancing herself away from the X-Men. Maybe rather than going out and finding an excuse to leave the party, maybe we see her watching like on the news that mutants are disappearing. And so we see her like at a computer trying to research everything she can about these disappearing mutants. And the other X-Men are trying to get her to do things, trying to get her to hang out, trying to get her to come to this party or whatever. Just basically trying to get her more involved in their activities, and she keeps pushing them away because she just wants to be alone. She doesn't want people to get close to her, and so she really just drowns herself in all this research. And then eventually she shows up. Maybe she shows up to the town, but not at the funeral. Maybe she's just at the town and she's trying to investigate. She's trying to gather clues. She's trying to figure out what's going on. And the end of the chapter could be like her stumbling upon like she hears a huge commotion. She goes and she sees that it's an anti-mutant rally outside this funeral. It's trying to figure out why are there a bunch of anti-mutants here. And then that's when all of a sudden these demons show up. And then we can have like her attacking the demons, and that could be like the cliffhanger. Something like that. Like, I just want to slow things down a little bit. Okay, so in the beginning, we had the girl being kidnapped by the demon, and we had another girl watching her being kidnapped. And I believe this other girl that's watching her being kidnapped is Ren. And Ren is the one that later gets kidnapped by the demon, and Magik is trying to save her, and then the Crow Cowboy ends up killing her, and she's the one that Isaac is like sad about. The problem is, though, is that we don't spend enough time with Ren, so that when she dies, I don't care. But what if in the first issue we had Magik showing up and she's trying to gather like research, she's trying to discover more about the people disappearing, and maybe she's talking or whatever, and Ren overhears her and says, "Hey, you're the one that's looking into the mutants disappearing, right? Well, like the police aren't doing anything about it. No one's doing anything about it because no one in this town cares for mutants, but I do. Like, she was my friend, and here's what happened. Like, I can tell you because I saw her getting kidnapped." And so Ren tells her everything she knows. And now maybe Magik's like, oh, some of these demons sound kind of familiar. Maybe these demons have some kind of connection to Magik, some kind of connection to the Limbo, to her Dark Child persona or something. Or like, we don't need to do that. It's just, that could be another thing. But basically, Magik starts doing more research into this, and she starts bonding with Ren. Like, a friendship almost kind of develops. Basically, Ren's like, this is the only person who is willing to try to help me out and figure out what happened to my friend. She was kidnapped by a demon, taken to a portal, and now she's dead. And that's how Magik goes to the funeral, because Ren can like invite her to the funeral, and that's why she shows up to the funeral, and then the funeral gets attacked and all that stuff. So basically, you get to show a little bit more of Ren, so that when she dies, it would hit Magik a little bit harder. Now, Darkchild can be like, hey, you didn't save your friend. You could have saved your friend if you had used my power. If you hadn't ignored me, if you had succumbed to the Darkchild power, you could have used me, you would have been able to save your friend, and Ren wouldn't have had to die. But now she's dead because you pushed me away, and you had to witness someone getting killed in front of you, and now Liminal is probably going to get free because the seal is weakening because you weren't able to stop it. Something like that. Just basically, like, have more character moments with our characters. Have more moments with our characters, so that when things happen, we actually feel a little bit more for them. So like when Ren dies, we actually feel a little bit more about the fact that she's dead, because she could have been like an interesting character. It would have made more sense why Magik shows up to the funeral rather than she just goes through a teleporter and she winds up there for whatever reason. Like, of all the places she could have appeared at in this town, why is it this funeral? And we could have just focused more on Magik, more on what's going on with her, more on the issues going through her head. Because like another thing is like, oh, she's scared that she brings danger to people. She's literally hanging out with the X-Men. If anyone is constantly dealing with danger, it's the X-Men. So why does she feel like that? We could have focused more on that. We could even had some of the X-Men be like, hey, like, we deal with stuff all the time. You pushing us away is doing nothing but harming yourself. Like, you're not bringing danger to us because we're constantly dealing with danger. And then we could have just focused more on why does Magik feel that way. So I don't know. I kind of would like stuff like that, where we dealt with the characters more before we introduce all this outside stuff. And then when the outside stuff happens, you know, it would have had more of an impact, in my opinion. But now it's just like things are just happening, and it's just one thing after the other, and it's way too fast. It doesn't have to be like super snail's pace, because that would be boring as hell. But slow it down a little bit, because I feel like there's way too much happening in this issue, and there's no like breather. So I would have liked for that. Just slow things down. Let us delve a little bit more into Magik and the things that are bothering her, like the trouble she's going through mentally and emotionally. I don't know. I feel like there's too much happening too fast, and this issue would have worked a lot better if we slowed things down a bit. With that said, I did find enjoyment in this issue, and I am going to continue the series. Whether I do more reviews for it, I don't know. I guess it depends on if you guys want to see me do more reviews for it or not. But I'm going to at least read the next few issues and see how it goes from there. Like, it was enough to grab my attention and to keep me hooked to at least read the next issue, maybe the next 2 or 3 issues. So I would give this, so yeah, I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. It's above average. It was fine. The artwork is fine as well. Like, I don't have any complaints about the interior artwork, really. My biggest complaint would just be some of the characterization, specifically because of Isaac. Like, his 180. There's multiple 180s, as well as just everything's too fast. This could have slowed down a bit, and we could have done a little bit more to build up to introducing this Crow Cowboy and stuff. Like, I feel like way too much happens, way too fast, and we're just kind of along for the ride, and it just would have worked a lot better if we just kind of slowed the pacing down just a little bit. Not too much, because you don't want to go too slow, but a little bit slower than what we got. That's my opinion anyways. But yeah, there you go. There's Magik issue number 1 from Marvel Comics. I hope you enjoyed, and hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I still want to thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next one is more to your liking. With that said, thank you once again, and I hope you guys and gals have a good one. Later.